Hello and welcome to Italy Beyond the Guidebook with me, Deborah Cater, editor of Italy News Online, and my sister, Sarah Cater of Flow Easy, a licensed tour guide in Florence. In our podcast, we're going to bring you something a little extra about Italy. We'll touch on famous names, monuments, artworks, and cities, but also leave you with nuggets of information which you won't find in a guidebook. But first, a brief introduction to us, our connections with Italy, and what you can expect in season 1. Let's start with the expert. Sarah, what brought you to Italy?
Well, hello. Well, in my mid-20s, I travelled to Australia, and that's where I met Marco. And I followed Marco back to Italy, in particular, the north of Italy called Piemonte, where there is a beautiful lake called Lake Maggiore. In fact, it's the second largest lake in Italy, the top of which is actually in Switzerland. So we're right at the top in the north of Italy. Yeah. When I first came here, I didn't know the language and I was living with his family. I was helping his mother with the aunt, and so I was acting as a bit of a home help. But I knew that I couldn't do this forever and ever, amen. And it was quite fortuitous when I was in the local bar that I met a lady, also English, and she said, really, the only two options that you have are either to work in a bar or become a tour manager. And so I decided on the latter, sent my application form in and worked for several agencies as I travelled top to toe of Italy with groups of travellers between the ages of 50 up to one occasion to 91. And so I'd have often coach days, 50, 100, 200 odd people at times. So it was during this period that it was great because you managed to see the differences between the cities, differences between the history and the traditions. So it was great fun. The only thing that really changed towards the end is that people the work changed in the fact that it wasn't about appreciating your surroundings and engaging with people with regards to what we were seeing, but it was more about uh, issues such problem solving, issues such as I don't have my room, I haven't got enough pillows. In fact, one of the receptionists said to me once, "What is it with the English and having 50 pillows?" I thought, I don't know. Um, and so I decided that I prefer to stay in one place rather than keep traveling around. And I wanted to concentrate on the great things about the job. And this is where I studied and got my license in Florence. And Florence is one of the, most renowned cities for its art and culture and history, and also the countryside, the landscape, olive groves, vineyards. It's always been a city or the area Tuscany I've always liked. And yourself, what's your connection to Italy?
Well, I also managed to pick up an Italian, though I didn't go as far as Australia to do that. I managed to find him in Spain. Eventually, I moved to Italy. I spent just under 18 months in Italy because much as I love the country, I didn't enjoy living there. Didn't enjoy living in Italy quite as much as I did in Spain. But whilst I was there, I lived in Veneto, in a town with Rovigo, well, in a village outside Rovigo, which is about 40 minutes from Venice. Actually, brilliantly located, that town. It's a shame it's a Rovigo, really, because it was so close to Venice, Bologna, and then you can get to Verona, the whole of Veneto, which is at Padua, all packed with fantastic cities, with history and incredible things. But I couldn't live in the in the house that was a ruin anymore. So I moved down to Marche, which is in the centre of Italy on the Adriatic coast. Basically, if you get to Rome and you head east, you would have hit where I lived. And I worked as an English teacher. But as I say, I love Italy, but I couldn't live there. Spain was calling me back, so I came back. And during COVID, I set up Italy News Online. I had a little bit of spare time, wondered what I should do with myself, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to share information about the place that I really love, even if I can't stand living there. But, yeah, I know, that's one of those things. So, you said you love Tuscany, you love Florence. Is that actually your favourite place in Italy?
No. Actually, my favourite place in Italy is actually on the border of Tuscany, and it's Umbria. I
Mhm.
love Umbria because it's quieter, but there are some gems. You have these beautiful hilltop towns with beautiful vistas. There are some very well-known cities in Umbria, such as Assisi, and I know we're going to be talking a little bit in a future episode. We're going to be talking about St. Francis of Assisi because it's actually this year that we celebrate the 800th anniversary of his death. So people know of Assisi, wouldn't necessarily know of the region Umbria,
Mm.
and of the other great places that you can visit in Umbria is known for wine. Some brilliant wines come from Umbria, and also the food is fantastic as well. They like
Oh.
pork in particular. Being a vegetarian, okay, I will side more over to the wine.
For me, I loved Venice when I lived in Veneto. I absolutely loved Venice. I used
Yeah,
to it was
I do.
40 minutes on the it was 40 well, we go there every other year, don't we, for the Biennale, for the art. But it was and I loved it, I was 40 minutes on the train, I'd get off the train and I'd get myself lost. Best way to look at Venice, actually, instead of just turning left, following the route and ending up in Piazza San Marco. There's so much more to Venice than that. But in October 2024, I went to Sicily. I was writing an article for another magazine about Montalbano. Montalbano is he started off as a detective in a series of novels, and he became a TV detective. So I was following that around because it was the 100th anniversary of Camilleri, who created him. So my favourite part of Sicily was Siracusa, which is where I based
Very nice.
myself. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
very nice. I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, I feel sorry for them now because they've just been hit by Cyclone Harry, and it has absolutely devastated the eastern and southern coast of Sicily. And actually, in 1693, the island was really devastated when there was a massive earthquake, which means that you get a lot of the towns were rebuilt in the Baroque style of architecture, which is probably, well, it's a toss-up between Baroque and Gothic for me as to my favourite architectural styles, but they are absolutely gorgeous to look at. So Sicily is now my favourite place in Italy. And talking about Baroque art probably is one of the most popular types of art that people enjoy. Is it yours?
I do like Baroque, definitely. My favorite artist, I would say, is Caravaggio. And so we're heading from the Renaissance into the Baroque. I do love Rome, in fact, for that reason. And in fact, I must admit that when I first went to Florence, I found it very boring, very boring. Um, but once you learn about the Renaissance and what it's all about, then you can appreciate the style of architecture. But yes, I do like the Baroque, and as I said, I do like Caravaggio. I'd say he's one of my favorite artists. It's the the man that's so bad he's good. So I love the
Yeah.
story of him. I like his realistic style of art. And yours? What's your favorite
Yeah, well,
artist, you'd say?
Caravaggio's yeah. Yeah, Caravaggio's there, but he's been pushed into second place by Bernini. Bernini was he did a lot of stuff around St. Peter's and the Vatican, but he for me, he was the artist that made me fall in love with sculpture. For the first time I went to Rome and I went into the Gallery Borghese, I was absolutely blown away by the Rape of Persephone and Apollo and Daphne, though I like to think of it as Daphne and Apollo because really the focus is on her. He managed to turn, and I'd never really seen sculpture like this before, he managed to turn stone into flesh. So you could see the dimples in her thigh when she's being grabbed. You can see his face being squished up as she's trying to push away. For Daphne, you wander around that incredible piece of sculpture and you can see how she's transforming into a tree in order to escape Apollo. Just, I mean, it nearly reduced me to tears. I was so taken with her. So Bernini, Caravaggio, and then another Baroque Gentileschi. I love her depiction of women. She's so strong that she really shows. You might see other, because it's all very religious. It's all very religious stories that they're painting about, but it's the angle that she does it from, and you just see these women in a different light to how you do when the men paint. So, yeah,
Yeah,
they're
well,
my top 3.
yeah, yeah. I mean, she's really showing it from a female's perspective, and
Mhm.
that's why she stands out to the other painters of the time who would have done exactly the same thing, exactly the
Yeah.
same thing. But that she stood out for that reason. There are art exhibitions. Actually, there was an art exhibition in the Borghese last year on Caravaggio, and it sold out. They had to extend it, and there were many people, including myself, that weren't able to get tickets. This year, there's going to be an exhibition on Bernini in the Borghese, and that would be brilliant to
Mhm.
go and have a look. If you want to, then I would suggest getting tickets now, because otherwise it might be like the Caravaggio, in the fact that later on you can't get tickets at all. So if you are thinking of going to Rome, I'd definitely be booking tickets now. But those are
Yeah, 'cause
yeah, I'd
it's only
say
running
there
it's
are,
only running for 3 months. Sorry to interrupt. It's only
yeah,
running for 3 months. So, March
yeah.
till June, well, I
Get in
did
there.
write an article about it, so I'll link that below. But yeah, it's not very long, so tickets are limited. Grab them while you can.
Exactly. And typically it's quite difficult to get in there anyway. So if if you are having problems with the tickets, then it is worth getting a guided tour. And it's worth getting a guided tour anyway, because there's no point going in and then thinking, oh, and just rushing and taking photographs and going out. I mean, it depends on what you want, but yeah. But I would say with those three, I think the viewers could most probably tell that our style of art, or what we like, because I'm not an artist myself, but the style of art I like is realist, realistic. I like that shock realism, that light and dark. I don't want to
Uh,
be looking at a square on a canvas and having to figure out what that square is. That doesn't mean to say that,
yeah.
contemporary artists and art we won't touch on, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's something that I look forward to viewing. Let's put it that way.
No. Yeah, so you won't be hurrying to the Mark Rothko exhibition at the Palazzo Strozzi this year. No.
Well, this is the thing, I'll have to study it anyway. And actually, when I do, and once I get the understanding of it, then I appreciate it. But when I
Mm.
first walk into a room, I want to be taken aback. Yeah.
And
And I think that's why I'm more drawn towards the Caravaggios and the art, Gentileschi, rather than the others. But that's the thing, it has to be said that although I've said that Caravaggio is my preferred artist, it does depend on art exhibitions that are running. So, for example, what's just finished in the Palazzo Strozzi in Florence was an exhibition on Beato Angelico.
mhm.
because obviously if you're taking people in there, you have to revisit your notes and, start reading up about the particular artist, then that will become your passion for the moment. And so that becomes your preferred artist by default. So, yeah,
Yeah. So Florence does have great art, but that's a given, and history
it does.
and
Yeah.
architecture. But what about its food? Does it have good food? Umbria has good food. Does Tuscany have good food?
Tuscany has very good food. Again, if I'm going back to experience of Florence, and the most famous food would have to be the bistecca alla fiorentina, which is the T-bone steak served rare because it's so thick. But being
Mm.
vegetarian, I wouldn't necessarily be heading in that direction. Fortunately, there are a lot of vegetables in the Florentine cuisine, in particular Tuscan soups. You've got the very famous ribollita, which has the black cabbage and beans in it. Lots of bread. Bread is a big Tuscan thing. There's a big Italian thing, bread, anyway.
Yeah.
Also, you have the panzanella. Again, that's bread, but you have your cucumber and your tomatoes and your onions. So they've got the pizza, the pasta. I like pizza. I'll have it once a week, definitely, without fail. With regards to pasta, not so keen on pasta, although now and again I'll get an urge. And so I go to a particular restaurant that I like and I'll order the pasta with the tuna and black olives and capers. Unfortunately, it does have garlic in it. So I always make sure that I don't have a tour in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But yeah. And you said
Wouldn't
because
make
you're
you
not a great
popular.
lover of pizza, are you?
No, 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 no. I don't eat pizza outside of Italy unless I'm ravenous and it's the only thing that's available. And in Italy, I haven't found a pizza that can top the one they used to have in Grignano, which is the village I lived in Veneto. And they did it all in front of you. There weren't pizza bases in the freezer waiting, to be pulled out, reheated, and chucked in an oven. No, it was all made fresh in front of you. Absolutely fantastic. So that's it. But I really won't go out of my way to eat a pizza. Pasta. Well, the thing with living in Italy is I used to have a client which was near the Barilla factory. And if you go into a supermarket in the UK, well, it's even worse here in Spain. I mean, you can get absolutely zero choice here. You might have two types of pasta, whereas in spaghetti, for example. But in the Barilla shop, there's like 15 or more just for spaghetti. It's like, what number do you have? And typically, I like thick pasta. Stefano likes thin pasta. And he'll eat it really plain, just con burro, which is with butter. Not my idea of fun. So I don't eat it that regularly, no. However, wine and cheese, straight in there.
I think it's called the Cater
And you
Plateau, isn't it?
cater platter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My goodness. Yeah,
Cheese.
we do. Cheese and wine. Yeah. We do like our cheese and wine. And Italy has that by the bucket load. So we're good with that one. Favorite wine?
Ooh. Ooh. Now, say if I'm talking down in the Tuscan region, then Montalcino. Montalcino
Oh,
wine's lovely. Yeah, Brunello di Montalcino, if I'm being specific.
oh,
That's a definite good. But I will drink anything, basically. I'm not too fussy. I'll drink red, rosé, white, and I'd say I'm typical of most people in the fact that red is generally winter time, and then the proseccos and the white wine is during the summer period. I quite like
mm.
Gavi. Gavi is
Yeah.
a white wine as well. That's nice. Yeah, I'm yeah. And yourself? You're more of a white wine, aren't you?
Oh, I drink it all. Oh, well, no, I'm like you. I drink red wine in the winter and white wines and rosés in the summer. Mind you, I do like bubbles all year round, I have to say. Unfortunately, Prosecco isn't my top bubble of choice. However, when I lived in Veneto, I have a little theory, whether it's borne out by science or not, I have no clue. But I think bubbles don't travel very well. So if I drink a Prosecco in Veneto, because that's where it comes from, I think it tastes better than if I drank it down in Marche. It'd be the same wine, exactly the same wine, same year, everything, and yet it seemed to taste way better up in Veneto. Yeah, so
Treviso. Very nice.
yeah,
Prosecco from
exactly.
Treviso. Yeah,
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 yeah. So it's very. I do like my prosecco. I mean, mind you, you could get very cheap stuff alla spinner, so literally from the tap, like getting
yeah.
a pint of prosecco, please. I don't know, sell it by the
Yeah,
pint, but it
if
was tempting.
if you are travel if you are traveling on a budget as well, and you do want wine to accompany your meal, then get the house
Yeah,
white, house red. I
yeah.
mean, you're drinking local wine. It's a hell of a lot cheaper, and it tastes good as well. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
all quaffable. When I was down
yeah,
in Marche, the bordering region is Abruzzo, and I actually lived in San Benedetto de Tronto at one point, which is just like a hop and a skip into Abruzzo. And my neighbour, he came home one day and he had this massive like demijohn or whatever. Well, it wasn't a demijohn, but it was a massive bottle, basically, liters, 5 liters or
carafe.
so of no, it was 5 liters, a big like water bottle thing, but of wine. And I said, "Oh, what's that then?" Because I can spy wine from a mile away. And he said, "Oh, it's the local Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, not the Montepulciano from the other part of Italy." And I said, "Well, how come she put it in a massive, like, 5 litre thing?" He said, "Well, I could just go to the vineyard and they pour it in. You take your container, they pour it straight from the vat into your
Yeah,
container." It was literally €1 a litre direct to it, and it was
yeah,
so nice. It's honestly
yeah.
Montepulciano d'Abruzzo is very, very nice. So I'd recommend that
Mm.
one.
And
Anyway,
nice when it's
we
accompanied with cheese.
with cheese, yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't mind. I mean, there isn't a cheese in the world that there isn't a cheese I've tasted that I don't like. I mean, obviously, there are some that I prefer to others. I love a gorgonzola dolce because I like the creaminess, and but with the still with the mold, so you got that zingy bit in it. But I also like a good bit of parmesan as well.
yeah. I like hard cheeses. I'm not so great on soft cheeses. So I bring a big kilo of that gorgonzola over at Christmas time because everybody likes it, but I don't actually eat it myself because I prefer the hard cheeses. I prefer the parmesans, or
Mm.
down in Tuscany, you've got the pecorino cheese, which is the sheep's cheese, and they do some hard varieties of that, and I much prefer that. I also like yeah, pecorino cheese with honey. That's
Oh,
blissful. Yeah, very, very nice. Pecorino
when you
cheese,
pour
honey.
the
Oh yes,
sorry.
they'll bring a little tub and you've got their spoon. And what I do is I normally have the tub and other people would get the spoon and pour it over. But I would often just get the cheese and just dunk it in, and a nice bit of white wine with it as well. Very, very nice.
Well,
Blissful. Yeah,
aperitivos are the way to go,
exactly.
aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta love it. So that's us in a nutshell, really. As you art, wine, and cheese, I think we can safely say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what can you expect in the coming episodes? I'll be hosting, and Sarah
We'll
will
be
share
drunk.
her expert knowledge. We'll be drunk. No, we won't. Well, no, no, we won't. We'll be very professional. So I'll be hosting, and Sarah will share her expert knowledge on the art, monuments, and history of Italy. And we're going to open with the bad boy of Italian art, Caravaggio. Then we'll move on to a far better role model in St. Francis, who, as we said earlier, it's his 800th anniversary of his death in Italy this year, 2026. Then in episode 3, we will move on to the Medici family. Big cheeses in Florence. Patronage, propaganda, and how art shaped political memory, because they did like to use the artists to spread their message. Then in episode 4, we'll still be in Florence and we'll be straining our neck upwards as we look at the city's architect, Brunelleschi, and in particular his Dome on the Duomo. Can't say that after too much Chianti. And Brunelleschi was mates with the artist or sculptor Donatello, who will be the subject of the next episode, followed by a discussion on the Davids of Florence. Because yes, there are a lot more than that muscled boy man of Michelangelo's, which you can find in the Accademia, or his replica standing casually outside the palazzo. If you're in need of a boost by that time, it'll be a timely look at Italy's coffee culture, just before we close season 1 with a look at the women who shaped Italy but rarely get mentioned. No surprise there. We'll be going back to the 11th century, from artists to doctors, mathematicians and leaders. So if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, share with your friends and family. And if you agree or disagree with anything we've said, let us know in the comments below. We won't take umbrage much. Also, we'd like to hear your suggestions for season 2 subjects. Is there anything that you would particularly like to hear about? We won't all be focused on Florence, so it could be anywhere in Italy. You'll find more cultural stories and context at Italy News Online on our Substack, YouTube, all the platforms. All the links will be below. If you're in Florence and you're looking for one of the top guides, or maybe the top guide of Florence, then we will also be linking Sarah's Flow Easy website below as well. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for a look at Caravaggio. Bye!
Arrivederci.